Hey everyone, it's Warren here from NQ Explorers. I'm in the Western Australian outback in the goldfields, and today we're going to go through a few prospecting tips, basic tips with the Garrett Axiom pulse induction gold prospecting detector. We're going to look at ground balance, we're going to look at timing, we're going to look at the difference between a double D coil and a monoloop coil in this red hot ground out here. I've got some gold with me. We'll show some target recovery techniques, and we'll show the difference between gold and iron and wire and the pulse response to those various targets that you might encounter while you're prospecting out here today. Thanks for joining me. Okay, basic prospecting tips with a pulse induction metal detector in hot outback soil like this looking for gold. Ground balance is critical. Coil control, you've got to be on the ground and you must ground balance the machine at the level that you're swinging. So if you listen to this, the machine is currently out of ground balance. You can't detect that ground with the machine acting like that. So I lift the coil up, I hold the ground balance button, and I pump the coil on the ground vertically. You can even show it a bit of ground horizontally to show it more ground so that it's got more information on the chip, and it'll balance the machine to whatever you're showing. So now we're ground balanced. The machine's nice and quiet, and you'll hear any anomalies and targets in the ground. Critical to gold prospecting success with a pulse induction metal detector is the mode that you're operating in. The mode on a Garrett Axiom controls your pulse timings. Let's have a look at the 4 pulse timings now that are available through the menu items on the Garrett Axiom. So in the modes we've got fine timing. That would be for small, shallow gold targets. As you change the timing, the pulse delay increases, so the machine is waiting longer for a return signal on the machine. Now, if you're in fine timing, it's a very short listening period. It's ideal for small gold where the pulse decays very quickly because small gold is such a low conductor of metal detecting transmissions. Now, if you go to a normal timing, it'll wait a little bit longer, and you open out your timing to large, it'll go deeper and wait longer for a return signal. And salt is a unique setting for, yes, the beaches, but mainly out here in Western Australia for detecting on salt lakes, high saline soils. So they're the 4 timings or modes available in the Garrett Axiom. So out here in Western Australia, I'm prospecting in the bush here today. I would normally run in normal mode or normal timing. Fine timing I would use if I pull up on a bit of gold and I'm cleaning up a patch. For general prospecting, normal timing. The large and salt timings are more for specialty areas where you have different conditions to what I'm facing here today. So general prospecting, normal mode in the timing, or fine. Swing speed and coil control are critical to gold prospecting success. I've got a little piece of gold here. It's about 0.1 of a gram. I've just laid it down in this ironstone gravel here, and I'll demonstrate the difference between going in fast, belting through the bush, and a careful swing technique. Now, if I come in, I'm prospecting at this speed, or I'm doing this, it's not going to pull me up, that piece of gold. So, swing speed and coil technique failed me there. If I go to the proper way to do it, I'm doing this, I come up on the piece of gold. No question there's a target. May not be gold every time, but you can hear the difference between this sort of business. If you're prospecting like that, you're unlikely to find anything. You prospect like this, you'll hit the gold. So that's the big difference between poor technique and control over the ground and speed across the ground in finding gold. Really important to go low and slow and keep that coil on the ground. You should be wearing out skid plates on your coils. Okay, let's look at the different audio response on different targets in the bush. I've got the Garrett Axiom with a 11-inch monoloop coil. I've got a ferrous target, which is a nail, a small gold nugget, and some lead shot. Typical things you'll find in the bush. So on the nail, you can hear the pulse train echoing in the target along the length of the nail. That's clearly, even on a mono, I don't have an iron check, but that's not a desirable target necessarily. Now let's go to the gold. That's a lovely, sweet, peaking audio. Now, interesting, we'll move on to the lead shot. Sounds very similar to gold because it's the same conductivity, very similar specific gravity, so it's going to react the same as gold. You've got to dig that lead shot. If you dig the lead shot, you'll find this gold, because you're going to get a very typical, similar audio response. Let's go back to the nail. You get a bit of an overlay there, but you can hear it's a very different audio response on ferrous targets, even with the mono-loop coil. So they're the three things you've got to remember: ferrous targets, lead shot and gold. Dig the lead shot, that could lead you to the gold. Let's now look at the difference between a double D focus coil on an Axiom to a mono loop. Most Australian prospectors will use a mono for its high sensitivity, but the advantage of the double D on an Axiom is you can identify iron with some caution. So let's have a look at these three targets again. I've got a ferrous nail, a gold nugget, and a lead shot, and I'll demonstrate the iron check feature on the Axiom. That's the response of the nail. I'll now go into the iron check. I press this menu button, wait for the 2 bips, and hold it down. You can hear the iron grunt and the broken signal. That's undesirable. Now we'll move on to the gold target. Off to the side. Wait for the 2 bips. Hold the button down. No grunting. The target's just about disappeared. Probably a desirable target. The lead. Does not check, it's ferrous. Target has disappeared. I would dig that target. Now that iron check used with caution, because I actually have dug gold that checks as iron because it's in iron stone. Use it with caution. That's at your own discretion, but it does really well identify shallow ferrous targets against gold or lead. Okay, let's look at the difference between a mono-loop coil and a double D coil prospecting for gold. I've got the double D coil on the Axiom now. The hot spot on this coil is a focus core around the centre where the stem hits the coil. That can sometimes be a disadvantage for pinpointing. And in this situation here, I'm probably better for the mono because I've got obstacles. So why would you run a double D? Well, you've got the iron check facility where you can identify ferrous versus gold, and also it will theoretically run quieter in hot ground and you'll have less trouble with hot rocks because the mono is just a red hot coil. But let's have a look here. I've got a little piece of gold up against this bit of mulga log, and let's see how this double D hits the coil as we come up on it. I'm detecting up here towards this obstacle. I don't really get much signal there. Now if I get to the focus core and I lift it up, now it's hitting it. You will hit the gold, but it's a little bit awkward in this obstacle situation we're facing, which is quite unique. Now I'll switch to the mono-loop coil and demonstrate that target ID again. Okay, now I've got the mono-loop coil on the same target. Good technique, scrub the ground. Listen to the difference in the target response. Now the mono has hit that little piece of gold without leaving the ground, so I didn't sacrifice any depth or any penetration on the small gold. In this situation, the mono is a little bit better at what we're doing. Okay, more basic tips on audio. Now with a pulse induction metal detector, you don't get a target ID indicating the conductivity, so audio is a big deal. What I'm going to demonstrate here is audio on gold nugget, a piece of wire, and a ferrous item, a nail. So let's have a listen to the gold nugget first and see what gold sounds like on a mono-loop coil. That's what gold sounds like at shallow depth. Now I'll demonstrate wire. This is really interesting wire because you'll learn how wire sounds as opposed to other targets in the ground. So you can hear that warble as the pulse train resonates through that length of wire because it's a linear target. Very different sound to the gold. Now we'll move on to a ferrous target, an iron nail. Now once again you can hear the pulse train in the linear target. Now iron presents very well to pulse induction. It sounds like an awesome target, but it is not. So as you get more time on the machine, you'll learn those different sounds. As you can hear there, the gold is a beautiful, sweet peak audio. You get the warble on the wire as the pulse train runs through the wire in a linear fashion, and then the ferrocite on the nail generally overloads at shallow depth, but will still warble at depth, and it will sound very different to a gold nugget. Let's have a look at efficient target recovery in the goldfields. I've got a target in the ground here. I've scraped the soil back. You don't want to be digging great big holes because it was a faint signal from the top. The target hasn't moved, it's still in the hole. I'll demonstrate that now. As you can see, I've drawn some dirt back there with the pick. What I'm going to do now is shave the ground until the target moves, and then I'll use my Garrett scoop to get the target in the scoop and check it on the coil. So we've got a good repeatable tone, it's nice and sweet. So what I'm going to do with the pick is just shave it back until I move the target, and then I'll separate my piles. Let's see if the target's moved. Yes. Now you can see that the target's moved to here from where I've dug it out of the ground, so we don't need this. If it's a small piece of gold, you want to start quartering up your piles and checking your piles individually. Okay, it's obviously in this little bit of ground here that I've dug out of that hole. Now, I have got a Garrett pinpointer. Generally they'll overload in the conditions in Australian goldfields, so if I turn that on, this ground's not too bad, but if you need to reach in the machine, the Garrett pinpointer, just bump the button and it'll tune to the ground. But in this situation, looking for gold, I would not use a pinpointer. Garrett nugget scoop. You can use 2 scoops if you don't want to go hand to scoop. So what I do now, I get the coil up flat next to me. This is a mono-loop coil on the Axiom, so the hot spots are the toe of the coil and the heel of the coil now that it's on the ground like that. Shake the scoop so the heavy object, the gold, sits to the bottom of the scoop, and then run it across the nose of the coil and see if you get a response. Okay, it's not in that scoop. Now don't dump your dirt somewhere else because it may still be in there. We've got to make sure we've got it here. Okay, clearly the target's now in the scoop. Matter now just shaking the scoop. Have a second scoop or use your hand. And just work down, keep shaking the scoop, drop the heavies to the bottom of the scoop. Still in the scoop. Okay, triple check that and don't dump your soil somewhere else. Once again, it's important you don't lose the dirt out there somewhere because you're going to be chasing the target around all day. Target's in the scoop. No. No. And there we go. Something heavy just hit the bottom of the scoop. We've got a piece of gold. So that's quick target recovery is critical. You don't want to be chasing your target around for 20 minutes. The more time you spend detecting, the more chance you've got of maximising the number of gold nuggets you pick up in a day. So quick target recovery with a mono-loop coil.